Good morning, Year 11s. I've moved the live lesson to Friday because, well, it's a snow day and, well, you probably can't hear the traffic because, well, there is none at the moment. But if I tried doing this at 9:30, we'd barely be able to hear ourselves speak. So, and also I'd be disturbing people, there'd be noises outside and all sorts. In my temple of white void, I'm relatively free to make all the noise I want at this time of night and very early in the morning, but not so much during the day. And I can't get into school because, well, the snow and the ice. My car is currently trapped, I think. I don't know. I've seen a couple of cars really struggling on the hill outside. So I'm going to assume that for tomorrow, I probably won't be able to move the car, but that's fine. So I'm doing the live lesson on Friday is my point. And the live lesson will be a bit more interactive. It has to be, where you get to ask questions, basically, and we get to be a bit more face-to-face properly about things. And frankly, it's a snow day. So whilst I've got to provide a lesson and you've got to do some work, it's a snow day and I appreciate that. And having a live lesson would just get in the way of that. And I don't think it would be terribly helpful. But a recorded lesson, on the other hand, you can check when you like. So what can I do with you in a recorded lesson that is helpful, but is also visitable at different times? And what I came up with was, well, going through the nitty-gritty, the bits you need to know, but you kind of already know, on how to tackle examination questions. Now, this was made by Mr. Cuthbert. His jokes are better than mine. And so, how do you prepare for your paper 2? The Elizabethans edition, 1580 to 1603. And as Queen Elizabeth herself says to Francis Drake, this is all, sorry, Walter Raleigh. Raleigh? Yeah. Water. This is all well and good. I'm sorry, the joke will never die. So, Walter, but where is your link back to the question? To which he goes, because he hasn't a clue. You on your hand will be fine. Well, I found it funny. Doesn't matter, does it? There. So, now you won't have a section B, it'll be a paper 2. The timings down the margin there have updated to account for the fact you've now got an hour to answer this. The other thing I haven't done is change the numbering of the questions. I suspect whatever the government decide you have to do, they'll be numbered 1, 2, 3 and 4, not 6, 7, 8 and 9. So, question 1 would have been an interpretation question, and you get an interpretation like this. Now, it could be an image or a passage. And most of the exams that we've seen since it went live have been a passage, i.e. written. I find that easier. You can pull a quote and then explain the quote. I'll point out why I've done that in a moment, but you can do it with an image just as well. The question here is, in interpretation A, the illustrator portrays the wealth and comfort of an Elizabethan gentleman's house. Note, wealth and comfort. They're the things you have to focus on. Identify and explain one way in which the illustrator does this. Now, if it was a written thing, it might say the writer has done this, and then you'd say, identify and explain one way in which the writer has done whatever it is they've identified. This is wealth and comfort. So they've given you 2 options. You pick both or one. Wealth and comfort, the wood panelling. It shows this because not everyone would have wood paneling. Most people lived in watland door houses. Rich people had brick-built houses with multiple floors. There we go. Wealth and comfort. Or you could talk about the large fireplace, brick-built, meaning there's more than one floor, meaning there's heating on every floor, meaning the house is warm and comfortable. Or you might talk about the servants themselves. They're difficult to employ, and therefore it shows the wealth of the house. Or the portrait in the background. It's difficult to get hold of these things. Of course it is. You've got to get an artist, and that shows the wealth. See how it works? Nice and simple. But so you say, there are 3 marks available. How are they assigned? And I say, talking to an examiner friend of mine, basically it's by caprice. If you've explained it well enough, they'll give you all 3 marks. You make a point from the source, there's 1 mark. You explain how it links to the question, there's another mark. And then you take it a little bit further. Or, to put it in the words of the chief examiner, that's it. That was the explanation of how you get your final 2 marks, having made a point from the source. You make a point from the source, then it's 3 marks. You spend about 3 minutes on it in an exam. It's simple. Don't worry about it. Question B is the one that causes the most consternation, and we hated it. But now we've had a couple of years of it, I actually like it because it tells you exactly what you need to do. If you were asked to do further research on one aspect of interpretation A, what would you choose to investigate? Now, you might say, well, I can pick anything, literally anything. The world is my oyster. I can go anywhere. I can answer any of my own questions. No, because the key is in the second half of the question. And this is why I've grown to love it. because it says, explain how this would help us to analyse and understand daily life. So you don't get to talk about wealth and privilege. You don't get to talk about the portraits and the background. They're not going to be helpful here. You could talk about the clothing being worn by the servants and say, okay, I want to know where it was made, where these servants came from. Was the clothing provided by their employer? Did they provide it themselves? Or you might want to talk about, I want to talk about the size of the room. The room's very small, but this is a rich man's house. Why is the room so small? Is he in the middle of an Elizabethan city? If so, I'd like to know more about the location of the house. I'd like to know why it's so small. How many floors did it have instead? Did everybody live in multiple floored houses in Elizabethan cities? Or was it poor people on one floor houses, rich people in multiple floored houses? Do you see what I mean? You link it back to everyday life. What's the food? What are they cooking? What's he about to eat? What veg has he got? Does he have a pineapple? And so on and so forth. Yeah? As long as you link it back to the question, you get away with it. You get a mark, you get to level 2 if you pick a relevant point and link it to the question. That gets you up to, I think, 3 marks. You get your 4th and 5th mark for taking it a bit further and using what Mr. Cuthbert calls, and he's right to, a touch of own knowledge, fragrance put on. His jokes are better than mine. They just are. I can't do it like he can. So what's your touch of own knowledge? Mine would be brick-built fireplaces. I'm obsessed with brick-built chimneys, you might remember, and the multiple floors thing. Or you might talk about the clothing. You might talk about, I suppose you could talk about the wood panelling, and that sort of thing, to link it to everyday life. That's how you do it. Does he have a pineapple? Question 7 or question 2 is interpretations question. Now, I'm not going to talk you through how to answer this question, if you see what I mean, not with these interpretations, because it's easy. It literally tells you how to do it in the question itself. It says interpretations B and C both focus on the power of Elizabeth I. There's your theme. They will always tell you what they're both talking about. In this case, it's the power of Elizabeth I. It then says, how far do they differ? So you give a difference. If you're really gunning for it, you could then give a similarity. But don't worry, you don't have to do that. You only have to do the differ. Why? Because of the second part of the question. What might explain any differences? So the first thing you do is prove there is a difference. And you can do that from the content. You can read these in your own time. You can pause the video whenever you want. You can come back to it. You can just briefly look at it and go, well, duh, I've got it. Here's a quote. Here's a quote. Here's an explanation why they're different. Good. You stop there. One difference. That's all it takes. Why might they differ? Well, this, in 15 minutes, all you have to do is prove it. Because this bit up here, this bit up here in bold is what we call the provenance. The provenance. That remembers how to spell it, you see. Provenance. 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 Prove Nancy. Sounds like a musical number. Mr. Partridge is already sorting out his sniper rifle because I just basically, yeah, I shouldn't make that kind of comment. The point is this. Why are they different? Now, once you've spotted what the differences are, and I'm not going to insult your intelligence by going through it here, you can read. Why are they so different? Well, this one is an extract from The Making of the United Kingdom, 1500 to 1750, a secondary school textbook written by J.F. Aylett in 1992. Our school has an entire class set of these. Interpretation C is an extract from A Brief History of Britain, 1485 to 1660, written by the historian Ronald Hutton in 2010. Straight away, they tell you what the difference is. Now, Mr. Cuthbert, in the Year 10 version of this, suggested message, style, or purpose. I don't think any of those are the easiest thing to draw out of here, but they were the easiest to explain. I think the easiest thing to draw out of here is the audience. At whom are they aimed? And you can tell this obviously. The first one is a school textbook. It is written for Year 8, Year 7 students. What's it going to do? It's going to simplify. It's going to talk up how great Elizabeth was. It's going to talk about how wonderful Elizabethan society was. It's going to focus on the successes because that's what the government want us to do. That's what they want us to look at when we're doing Elizabethan England. How great was Elizabeth? Let me count the ways. Whereas interpretation C is an historian, and he's written a book called A Brief History of Britain. Straight away, you know it's not for university students, you know it's not for professional historians, you know it's not for other people that are studying at the level that presumably Ronald Hutton is studying at 2010. This is written for the interested amateur, but an adult. Someone who went through schools being told how great Elizabeth was. straight away. You know this is going to focus on uncomfortable truths or interesting tidbits that you wouldn't have picked up otherwise. And it's going to be counter-conventional. It won't talk about how great Elizabeth is. That's not its purpose. Its purpose is to sell books, but to do so with historical fact. This guy ain't going to lie. He's just going to tell the interesting bits. And, well, you can see for yourself, he uses the term toy boy or boy toy, toy boy. He calls him a toy boy. He calls Essex a toy boy. Enough said. Whereas the first one is simplifying and talking about how great Elizabeth was, and it's going to skim over the fact that she was a bit senile toward the end and it all went a bit wrong. So straight away, you know that the reason for the differences is who they're aimed at. And you've already explained what the differences are in an earlier section with the content. That's it. That's all you have to do. You've got 12 marks there. Job's a good one. It will take about 15 minutes because there's a lot of time to read through and work out which quotes you're going to use, to analyze the provenance, or prove Nancy, to work out why they are different. And then you say, here's the difference, here's why. That's it. 2-paragraph answer with 5 minutes to read and analyze the sources to begin with. The final bit, I'm not going to focus on that much. As Mr. Cuthbert himself has said, keep calm, ladies. You know how to write an essay. You've been doing it since we got back. Your Germany essays technically are brilliant. I have no problem with your Germany essays, nor would I have any problem with your Germany essays. And this is the same. You do an intro where you set out the bits you're going to look at, and then you give your judgment, and then you do that 4 times, and then you conclude. That's it. All that's left is to go through the 2 examples and briefly prove that you know what you do. The first one is about Catholics creating dangerous and uncertain times in Elizabethan England. How far do you agree with this view? Recusants, the religious settlement under Elizabeth. Priests and priest holes, 4. And international Catholics, the Armada, possible invasion, Jesuits. There you go. Each one of those, you could argue, create or don't create dangerous and uncertain times. Recusants, are they really that dangerous? Are they really that uncertain? Priests, are they really that dangerous? Really that uncertain? The religious settlement, actually quite a calming influence. International Catholicism, yes, invasions and potential spies. Do you see what I mean? The next one, Tudors and Stuarts. R.J. Unstad stated that Elizabethan adventurers successfully increased English trade in all parts of the world. Well, maybe in the East, from 0 to something. In the West, not so much. There was a sinking of the Squirrel. There was Walter Raleigh's failed exploration for El Dorado. There was Roanoke that utterly failed. Ralph Fitch in the East, however, did bring back some kind of trade agreement and an idea of how to improve it. And then Lancaster went out, James Lancaster went out and actually created it in 1600. So there's your 4 paragraphs. You can check your own notes. I'm not going to insult your intelligence by getting you to plan the answers to these. You know how to do it in your own time. And the point is, it's 4 peels, 2 for, 2 against, or 1 versus 3, really doesn't matter. And that's it, really. That's how you get the marks. And it's 30 minutes. So hopefully this has been a short video. I really want you to go out and have some fun today. If there is some snow, enjoy it. If there is a chance, get some fresh air because, well, your well-being is important to me. If you have been, thank you very much for watching. And I hope that the video has been useful because you can play it when you need to and arrange your day accordingly. Because it's snowing, the day will be different. Of course it will. Have a lovely week, ladies. I look forward to seeing you on Friday when we'll have a chance to discuss in a live lesson that won't cut into time to do important things, but will be an important thing in and of itself. We'll have time on Friday to discuss the knowledge base and for you to ask your questions, and I'm sure you will have some. In the meantime, have a lovely rest of week, and I shall see you, if not before, on Friday.